Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about diuretics. Diuretics are those drugs which increase the urine and solute excretion. So, if you want to increase the urine formation and its secretion, then these drugs are used. There are other two terms also, that is natriuretic and aquaretic. Natriuretic are for those drugs which increases particularly the sodium excretion from the kidney, while aquaretic are those drugs which enhances the excretion of water. Now, the diuretics are classified into four classes. The first is high efficacy diuretics, which includes loop diuretics, or we can say high ceiling diuretics. The examples are furosemide, bumetanide, pyretanide, ethacrenic acid, torsemide, and azosemide. The second is moderate efficacy diuretics, which includes two types of drugs, thiazides and thiazide related agents. Thiazides are those drugs which mainly includes benzothiazidines. Examples are chlorothiazide, hydrochlorothiazide, polythiazide, benflumethiazide, and benzthiazide. While thiazide related agents include chlorthalidone, clopamide, indapamide, metolazone, and zepamide. While low efficacious diuretic particularly includes potassium sparing diuretics, the examples are triamterene, amiloride, spironolactone, and aplerenone. Carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, which includes acetazolamide, methazolamide, and dorzolamide. Osmotic diuretics, which includes mannitol, urea, glycerol, and methylxanthines, which include theophylline. And the fourth class is the newer agents, which includes three subclasses: vasopressin antagonist like conivaptan, tolvaptan, and lixipaptan, and adenosine A1 receptor antagonist, that is rolophylline, and SGLT2 inhibitors, dapagliflozin and canagliflozin. So there are total four classes of the diuretics, in which the first three classes are based on their efficacy. They are high efficacy, moderate efficacy, and low efficacious diuretics. And fourth class is newer agents. So starting with the first one, high efficacious diuretics, which includes high ceiling diuretics, or we can say loop diuretics. These drugs are known as loop diuretics because they particularly act on the loop of Henle. If you remember the structure of nephron, the nephron renal tubules include PCT, that is proximal convoluted tubule, then loop of Henle, then DCT, that is distal convoluted tubule, and collecting tubule. So amongst that, those renal tubules, these drugs particularly act on the loop of Henle, and that's why they are known as loop diuretics. In that, the main basic drug is furosemide. Furosemide and frusemide, both term are correct. So you can write any one of them, frusemide or furosemide. Furosemide is a sulfonamide derivative which is most popular loop diuretic, and it is also the powerful diuretic too. The mechanism of action of furosemide. The furosemide acts by inhibiting NaCl reabsorption in thick ascending limb of the loop of Henle. So particularly what they cause? They cause the inhibition of the reabsorption of NaCl. So when the reabsorption of NaCl is inhibited, more amount of sodium is excreted out, and because of that there is a more excretion of water along with sodium, and that's why urine formation and urine excretion is increased. And particularly where it occurs, that is in case of loop of Henle also, they particularly act on the ascending limb of the loop of Henle. You can see the structure of ascending limb of Henle's loop, where it shows that it blocks the Na plus K plus 2Cl minus symporter in the thick ascending limb of the Henle's loop, because of which it is called as loop diuretic. So as I told you, they act on loop of Henle, and that's why they are known as loop diuretics. And where they can act, they inhibits the sodium potassium 2 chloride symporter. So sodium chloride and potassium reabsorption is inhibited. So you can see that in the structure, from the lumen, sodium chloride and potassium is reabsorbed into the ascending limb by that sodium potassium 2 chloride symporter, and that is inhibited by furosemide, and that's why it inhibits the reabsorption. So it greatly increases the excretion of sodium and chloride in the urine. Now, because the large amount of NaCl is absorbed in this segment, the loop diuretics are highly efficacious. You can also say that total amount of NaCl, from the total amount of NaCl, about 90% of the NaCl is absorbed from the loop of Henle. So majorly, major amount is absorbed from the loop of Henle, and these drugs inhibit at that site, and that's why they are highly efficacious. Diuretic response increases with dose, and over-enthusiastic treatment can cause dehydration, as several liters of urine may be produced in a single day. Uh, it is efficacious, highly efficacious, but how much? If you take the slightly overdose of furosemide, then it causes the dehydration, because several liters of urine is produced in a single day, and that, if that happens, then it is called as high ceiling effect. So that's why they are known as high ceiling diuretics. So maximum, high ceiling means the maximum effect. So the maximum effect can be produced, maximum diuresis can be produced by these drugs, and that's why they are known as high ceiling diuretics. So that is about mechanism. In case of mechanism, again I am repeating, they inhibit the sodium potassium 2 chloride symporter in the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle, and that's why the large amount of NaCl which is absorbed from this site is inhibited. So large amount of NaCl is excreted out along with the large amount of water, and that's why it produces the very high diuresis. But these drugs has also the other actions too, which include: first one, loop diuretics also enhance the excretion of potassium, calcium and magnesium. But calcium is reabsorbed in the distal tubule, so there is no effect of hypocalcemia. But in case of potassium, excretion is increased, because it is exchanged with higher amount of sodium that reaches the distal tubule, so that can cause the hypokalemia. The prolonged use can also produce hypomagnesemia. More amount of magnesium can also be excreted into the urine. Okay, first of all, I would like to explain you about the terms. Hypokalemia, when the kalemia is used, it is related to potassium. When calcemia, it is calcium, and magnesemia, it is magnesium. That you can understand. When there is hypo, it is less. When it is hyper, it is high. That also you can understand. Along with that, when there is, the word is ended by the semia, the like hypomagnesemia, kalemia, natremia. So that amia, that means the amount in blood. We are talking about blood. When it is ended by urea, uria, urea, then that means in urine. When we are talking about kalemia, that is the amount of potassium in blood, and calcemia, the amount of calcium in blood. But calciuria, then the amount of calcium in urine. Caluria, that means the amount of potassium in urine. So when the word is ended by urea, we are talking about the amount of that particular iron in urine, and the word amia, that means the particular amount of that iron into the blood. So here in this first action, that that explains the loop diuretics also increases the excretion of potassium, calcium and magnesium along with sodium and chloride. So when high amount of potassium is excreted out, when it is excreted out from the body, so in our body the potassium level reduces. So there is a reduced level of potassium in the blood, which is hypokalemia. Calcium is also excreted out from the loop of Henle, but when it reaches to the distal tubule, it is reabsorbed. So there is no decrease in calcium level in the blood. So there is no hypocalcemia. But in case of magnesemia, magnesemia can also be excreted out from the body, and that's why it produces hypomagnesemia. Now the another action is they increase the reabsorption of uric acid in the proximal tubule. So when the uric acid reabsorption is increased in our body, the amount of uric acid is increased. So there is a high amount of uric acid in the body, and that is called as hyperuricemia. So hyperuricemia is increased uric acid level in the blood. The third action is high ceiling diuretics cause vasodilatation in renal vasculature. जो renal blood vessels है, in the blood vessels, renal means kidney, so blood vessels of kidney get dilated because of loop diuretics. So when they get dilated, there is increased blood flow. Obviously, whenever the diameter of any blood vessel increases, the blood flow increases. So because of the vasodilatation of renal vasculature, there is an increased blood flow. But on long-term use, they alter the renal hemodynamics to reduce fluid and electrolyte reabsorption in the proximal tubule. So loop diuretics enhance the renin release. I think you have heard about the renin-angiotensin system. So whenever the renin is secreted from the kidney, then it activates the angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1, and then that 1 is converted to angiotensin 2 by the angiotensin converting enzyme, and that angiotensin 2 is responsible for the increased blood pressure. So that renin secreted from the kidney can be enhanced by loop diuretics. The fourth action is furosemide is also the weak carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. That is also one of the class, as we have seen, that is in low efficacious diuretics, the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. We will discuss the mechanism of those drugs in that class, but because of the inhibition of one enzyme, carbonic anhydrase, it also produces diuresis. So furosemide also inhibits the carbonic anhydrase enzyme, and by that mechanism also it increases diuresis. So because of that, it also increases the excretion of HCO3 minus, matlab bicarbonates and phosphates. So along with potassium, magnesium, sodium, chloride, they also increases the excretion of bicarbonates and phosphates. The next action is the intravenous furosemide causes venodilatation and reduces left ventricular filling pressure. Whenever the furosemide is introduced, is administered through the injection directly into the blood. If we directly inject furosemide into the blood, they cause venodilatation. Means in all the veins, the venous system, blood vessels get dilated, and because of that, it reduces the left ventricular filling pressure. When all the venous blood vessels of venous system get dilated, what happened? The blood that poured into the right atrium is having the less pressure, because of the whole the blood flow is smooth and slow. So that is poured into the right atrium with low pressure. So that again, when returns from the lungs into the left ventricle, there is a decreased filling pressure. So the left and the blood ejected out from the left ventricular is also having the less pressure. So it does relieve the pulmonary congestion and in acute congestive heart failure and in pulmonary edema even before the onset of diuresis. So I think, have you heard about congestive heart failure? Congestive heart failure means when the heart fails to pump. So when heart fails to pump, but because of what? When heart fails to pump, what happens? The heart cannot pump out the blood into the circulatory system. So when heart cannot be emptied, then what happens? The venous system that poured the blood into the right atrium or into the heart cannot be emptied. So when heart cannot be emptied, then venous system cannot be emptied, and there is a congestion of the blood in all the circulatory system, and that's why it is called as congestive heart failure. So in that case, what should we do? That we should use those type of drugs which improves the blood circulation. So these drugs, furosemide, not only decreases the blood volume by increases diuresis, but it also produces venodilatation. So when the venous system blood vessels dilated, it improves the congestion, and that's why they can be used in congestive heart failure. So when diuresis effect is produced, before that it produces venodilatation and quickly can improve the blood circulation. And these effects may be prostaglandin mediated, and that is due to the induction of prostaglandin synthesis in the kidneys. Prostaglandin synthesis is increased in kidneys, and that's why this effect is produced. The next section is loop diuretics also induce the synthesis of prostaglandin E2, which inhibits reabsorption of sodium in the loop of Henle and thereby also contributing the diuretic action. See, still diuretic action is stimulated by this one another mechanism. Which mechanism? So this furosemide stimulates the synthesis of particularly prostaglandin E2, and that prostaglandin E2 also responsible for the inhibition of reabsorption again. So by that indirect mechanism also it improves the diuresis. Furosemide is also secreted in the proximal tubule where it blocks the free water clearance, and this contributes to the small extent to diuretic action.